Well, it's that morning wake up. One of those nights where, oh, you kind of did a lot of thinking, you actually got a lot of stuff done. Had a lot of stuff to sort out and look at. So it's another day. It's that morning wake up. Time for coffee, soda, whatever it is that you're going to do. And reality is that we're still surrounded by monsters. We have all these political monsters out there. And many of us, we want to get on with our lives. We don't want to be basically banned from building homes with our own hands. We want the contract restored. We want our stock, our residuals. We want what we paid for, what our parents and great parents paid for. So that means we want a lot of stuff. We want our land back. We want our cut of the land. We want to be able to control things in our environment instead of having people tell us how our environment is going to be controlled. We want to be better participants as stewards instead of having people tell us, no, you're not allowed to be stewards. So what ends up happening is we're at the end of a sequence of time for our nation. And we were at that big, huge crossroads. The biggest one we'll ever face. Because we have a choice of whether we are going to rise up into heaven and embrace a new system of riches based upon minerals, or are we going to descend into madness as everybody starts killing each other over the smallest things? Are we going to allow incredibly small groups of people to rule over us, to tell us what to do? Are we going to be permanently locked into educational systems that are flawed beyond the point of actually giving people the tools that they need, flawed to the point where you get handed a coin and you get to flip it, and one side says burger flipping job and the other side says something a bit better. So that extensional chance to go to college and try again. But in a way, it's not necessarily guaranteed to be a whole lot better. You go to college, you just get to basically flip more coins, roll more dice. Success seems to be people who go out and just do it, for the most part. So we have the so-called ruling class, we have the various people teaching us about the oligarchies and about the this and the that, and we have brushstroke mixtures of jamming all kinds of categories together. Just jam them all into the same box and give it one label. And even though we know that life isn't really necessarily that way, that some people are not guilty of crimes. The Roosevelt era had huge taxes placed upon categories of people And it was based upon the fact that they got a hold of telegraph communications, where people used telegraph communications to involve themselves in collective business strategies simultaneously to crash the economy of the nation, to literally sabotage it for the purpose, well, of their own wallet. So because we were short of enough people to prosecute, to sort out the mass numbers of what apparently had been discovered, the clear understanding that they knew that they had at least 1,000 people that apparently were guilty, who had destroyed the country, who had brought it to a great point of poverty. So they decided to say, okay, let's look at this and let's just hit these certain other categories, and we're just going to massively increase taxes. And in so, with that group of 1,000 guilty people were other co-conspirators, other people that fit into other different associations. In other words, it wasn't just this one person's name. Oh, no. They had staff. They had people that participated. They had people that helped do facets of the research. People who were part of the meetings and part of the theorizations of what is going to happen if we do this or we do that. And why don't we get together with buddy stuff, and we can work together and use the telegraph and do this simultaneously, so that we can end up creating a brand new market. A brand new market for the elite. And we don't care how much carnage occurs. It's called economic sabotage. It's treason. It's defined by the Constitution of the United States basically as, well, punishable by the death penalty. Let's go straight to the answer. But we didn't have enough people to sort it out, to do all the investigations and all the proper long methodologies. So we basically ended up with a series of categories where taxes were increased. So you had all of a sudden 10,000, 20, 30,000 citizens in a dramatically increased tax area to basically cover what was needed to tap money to conduct the repairs, to give the country a chance to move forward. Now we have AI, and the AI stuff that I've worked with. And basically you can do something. It looks like 50% of the people in these tax categories, you can use AI and trace back and figure out that 50% of these people in these categories are not guilty, that they're innocent. And you could remove them from being punished, from being forced into that huge mega tax bracket. Of course, what do you do with the remainder? We'll set that aside, and that can be another decision to understand. We've had a lot of corruption since then. We've had a whole lot of problems with people who robbed us. You know, we had these great land acquisition deals that, of course, had many types of revelations brought out by various scholars, such as, look what was done to the Indians, and various other groups. But here we have something else that's interesting. We have unfinished business. The unfinished business deals with things like we had people who were unable, well, we just talked about it, to process people who were criminals, who did something to take a dramatically unfair advantage by participating in economic sabotage, which was a death penalty offense. And then somebody decided to say, well, what we're going to do is we're going to create a temporary stopgap solution and basically begin healing part of the country, except there's unfinished business. What about all the victims? See, a lot of people miss that understanding. Oh, well, we're going to do this or that. No, that's really not what happened. That was the government fixing their financial position for the most part. Oh, sure, they put in some little bit of some tiny social programs. But when you look at some of the various proposals, you ended up with land distribution, which ended up being most well as becoming the Dust Bowl. All these people were given land and they went out to try to farm it, only primarily using seasonal rain situations. And yeah, there was some people pulling groundwater to do the irrigation, but then things dried up. Just happened. You know, what seemed to be the beginning of a nice boom rapidly just turned off. The spigot just turned off. No more water. Of course, now we have the minds, the engineering, the methodologies to reverse the situation and restore water to certain regions and come up with brand new plans to basically repair certain plain state problems. But there's far more into the equation that has been ignored, because what has been ignored is they decided to hand out land in the plains in these various areas that were kind of sort of extremely remote. Pretty much no trees. So we keep having a situation where we see these land handouts of land, and it's really not good land. Even today, you have these certain places in the desert, oh yeah, you can stake some land out. It's desert. Almost nobody wants to go there. I mean, it's a ridiculous. So you look at Google Map and Google Earth, you're just looking at all this stuff, and some people come out of it, it hits them, and they realize that something's gone wrong. Look at these huge Louisiana purchase, Alaska purchase, all of these vast land purchases. And yeah, we've got a lot of land that's really rough, but the reality is far different than that. People keep getting robbed. You keep looking at the complexities of how they do these strange land handouts, how they end up doing things, but then you can never get through. You try to figure it out. You got a whole group of people trying to figure out some of the land handouts, downloading material and getting viruses. You go to download the material, you end up with a virus in your computer. Well, gee, that didn't work very well for people, did it? So what we have is, even back during the Roosevelt eras, you have this problem. Even prior to the Roosevelt era, you have this problem where people were deciding to hand out land. What they did is they handed out land that was kind of sort of worthless, kind of sort of with the big gamble. It's like, well, all the water is groundwater or just rainwater, and either way it still relies upon rainwater. So it's not something that was a manageable system, not a real stable green land system. So you have to ask yourself, why is it somehow that all the green, nice, prime land is apparently not available to the people? There's a problem, because there's vast amounts of it all over the country. And you still have a lot of areas where the government claims the land and they don't want to release it. And you have a lot of areas where the government claims even more land. They keep claiming land, and again and again and again. There's all kinds of land claiming away from states and different things like that. And this is a serious problem, because what we have is a series of discrimination. And AI is an incredible thing. AI can go through all those old written records and make all kinds of logical determinations. And the smarter you make AI, the smarter it will get doing investigation. So as you have problems with many of the AI systems not necessarily having access to certain types of material, certain types of information. And all of that's in the process of changing. So, mass discoveries. I've actually talked about this before. Mass discoveries. AI is going to make mass discoveries discovering mass corruption, mass land theft. But if you go back to the big crash and the identification, where they identified all these categories of people that were part of the original 1, 2, 3,000 people. Again, I believe it was 1,000 people. They were certain that at least 1,000 people consciously participated in that timed action decision to deliberately sabotage the economy, deliberately, for the purpose of financial gain. And those people did something more. It was more than just them having those resources. And the high tax didn't fix a lot of things. It didn't fix the fact that people's lives were ruined. They lost everything. They lost everything due to acts of economic sabotage. And of course, these other people had good credit ratings. The government didn't ban these people from getting a hold of money from the bank. They didn't ban these people from basically being connected to bank deals where money would be obtained wholesale from the Fed. Wholesale money access. This is, if you can just imagine, just drive up to the warehouse and borrow money at 0.5%. Wow. The odds of that, who could lose at that? Wow, go borrow $10 million at 0.5%. Kind of incredible. So incredible theft occurred. It's hard to imagine the actual scale when you look at the scale of the amount of money that was stolen and what they did with it, because they got to do something else. They got to buy land. In other words, they sabotaged everybody else's life deliberately. They had the proof, caught these people in these categories red-handed, and said, well, we're just going to tax them more. And they didn't block them from having financial access, because they didn't need any more financial access. They already stole gobs of money. They could have not only left them in a high tax bracket area, they could have said, well, we're banning you from borrowing money ever again. That's it, you're done. These little loans you've got that, or big loans, whatever you got, basically you get to run those out, and that's it. And say, yeah, no more borrowing money, no more access to wholesale money. Now, AI can figure all this out. AI can figure out the 50% of people in a certain category that were innocent. And then it can also figure out people that were guilty, definitely guilty, and how they accessed wholesale money from the Fed, and how they bought vast amounts of land. So you can have an actual understanding. There are laws that some people just don't seem to understand. Treason has no statute of limitations. There are certain laws that have no statutes of limitations. It's very important. Civil rights, and pretty much an array of some very important laws. This basically means that people who involve themselves in mass economic sabotage and didn't get basically punished, where it would say yes, because part of punishment would have included, yeah, you misused money to use it as a weapon to destroy the country. You're banned from being able to forever and ever and always do banking, borrow money. But of course, that's part of a treason conviction. Then the next stage is your penalty phase. So you have first part of the treason conviction where you would lose everything, including your freedom, and then they're going to kill you, which is what should have happened to many of these people. They were monsters. And instead of resolving the problem, instead of saying, well, there's no statute of limitations, we'll tax them, and then, oh, by the way, let's start hiring and training people, and in 5 years we can start sorting through the records again and go back after these people. They didn't do that. They didn't do that. And you had some people thought about doing, but keep in mind there were some people that they did put some convictions on. But then as things kept moving forward, they decided, well, we kind of need some of these people's skill sets because they're really good managing businesses, because we need to move machines forward. Well, that's a mixed thing. That's a yes and a no. We're getting ready to go into war. But still, what does that mean? It means, okay, well, then you have more time to train other people to fill the slots. At some point in time, again, there's no statute of limitations. You have to go back after and realize who the monsters are. Who the monsters are. And be able to do something about it. So that's something I've had a whole system of, let's actually go back and deal with the books, because what happens is if you let monsters get away, they breed. And what do they make? They make more monsters. It kind of happens that way. So you end up with a situation where you have a whole lot of people that got a hold of things that didn't belong to them. They borrowed money they never should have been allowed to borrow. They bought land at vast wholesale rates. They greased the palms of politicians to get land at a discount that they weren't entitled to. So we have these vast areas of land throughout the entire country of, well, what did they go after? Well, they went after the good land. They went after the prime land. They went after the nice, beautiful land, the land with the trees. And they burned us. These are people that do things in back rooms, and they grease each other, and they pull money out of cases, and they spread it around. And they cheat everybody. And they purposely put other laws. They invent other laws to destroy other people's lives, to make other people pay the bills, to make it so other people can't succeed. A series of dramatic reductions of percentages of people that will have the capability of being able to respond, basically, to build. They destroy the entire original concept of the Constitution by continuously financially, privately paying to develop more laws and lobby them into place, where they keep doing something. They get an advantage, and other people are forced into a restricted environment situation, a disadvantage. Now, the odd thing is that what is truly unfair is they've also paid for specialized engineering, and they have sabotaged the entire justice system. For instance, all rich people get to write off legal expenses. They're a write-off. This basically means that all of their legal expenses are free. This means that the federal government is paying and the state governments are paying for all the legal cost of all these people. This includes the monster class, the criminal class. But you have people that will go to the Justice Department, police station, will say, look, this is what happened, and it's actually, well, wow, that's a criminal crime. And they say, oh, we don't feel like handling like a criminal crime. Handle it like a civil matter, but then you have to do it yourself. So you have a bunch of people that are going, but we don't have the resources to do that, primarily because these people committed this crime, and it's a criminal crime. So we have people that basically have the federal government giving them money to engineer legal maneuvering, to use the justice system and the legislative systems and various other governmental systems as a weapon. They've weaponized it. The rich have completely weaponized the understanding of how to use these nuances of tax deductions. See, you can't afford to get an attorney to deal with a criminal matter that they've decided to call a civil matter. This, of course, is engineered intentionally to be an item on mass scale. Any item that is engineered on mass scale is a form of sabotage. And since it affects the economy, it's economic sabotage. The identification of the original constitutional meaning of many of these items means that we have all these players that have committed treason, in which the Constitution states and says death penalty. And the particular lectures that some of our forefathers laid out about why certain laws have to be in the books, about why you have to charge people and kill them, is because they understand about monsters. They understand about people that'll basically never stop. These people will never, ever stop. That's what they do. They're monsters. You shouldn't expect anything else of them. So we have a justice system that is horribly broken, and now we have AI to be installed. Under my administration, AI will be massively installed everywhere through government. There will be services 24/7, whatever you need help with. There'll be constant equating and updates as new types of analytics come through, not just on a monthly basis, a yearly, monthly, or weekly basis, but a daily basis, literally a daily basis. Each day, citizens will get notices that new recovery of certain rights or compensation has been discovered for them. This is not a welfare system. The design of this is not a welfare system. It is constantly going to be discovering criminal operations and say, look, we've discovered that these people pay these people in government to invent illegal laws and to grab assets that didn't belong to them. And oh, by the way, on top of that, they've invented a way where it was all tax deductible. So at the end of the year, the government gave them all the money. The government paid them to involve themselves in criminal operations. So here we have all these vast, wide-scale, clandestine operations of crime, and they're all 100% paid for by the federal government, making the federal government the largest partner in crime. in the history of humanity an ongoing consciousness of criminal activity that is mind-boggling. Now, keep in mind, most people are immediately jumping to the us versus them understanding. And that's actually wrong, because it's not that simple. It doesn't fit that way. It doesn't fit that way, see, because you have, remember how we started out, the explanation of those people who are innocent. So you could just say, as a general rule of thumb, guarantee that half of these wealthy people are not guilty. Oh, you can have a lot of people debate about this or that, but you need to immediately put a fairness on the table and say, yeah, you just can't say, oh, well, all these people are guilty, or 9 out of 10 are guilty. You have to give it a chance and say, you have to be reasonable and say, well, it has to be at least a 50-50. At least a 50-50. So that way you would reduce violence, because some people might just totally get upset in life and say they're sick and tired, and they're just going to run down the street with a knife and start cutting people's throats. We've been seeing more and more knife attacks throughout the world. Britain, Europe, Mideast, various areas throughout the world where these things can happen. The concept of guns is not the only item dealing with mass crime. Ripper crimes are quite horrible. You have people that are stabbed readily all around the world, and people escape. So this is one of those situations. So it's just a little bit different. Instead of using a gun, you have people that are dressed up in a disguise, and they manage to kill somebody and immediately run out to a vehicle and escape. So the reality of these things are quite horrible. Different types of monsters and threats. But the unique factor, if you say, well, let's look at what's the positive side. What is the constitutional win-win mindset? The great constitutional mindset of building. This is what you grab hold of. This is what is immediately doable. Because as I basically continuously engineered and worked with the understanding of how you would identify these categories, and how you would identify with the enormity of criminal actions, and how you would identify with how large compensation would be, and what is compensation going to be, it became simpler and simpler to understand the tactics that occurred. What's been sabotaged? What was destroyed? What's been removed from education? What services, what options have been removed? The basic option of removing the ability for human beings to build their own home. I've talked about the reality that the actual equation of what your productivity is as a standard human being. This is somebody with less than a 7th grade education, that you are worth 480 houses for your productivity by age 65. These are fantastic statistics that are absolutely accurate. The use of AI to begin the scheduling of the 24-hour services, as my administration immediately would be started doing. And effectively, I was going to be running items, basically from the campaign. I was going to get people in the process of the campaign, signing up for future services, signing up for some things that actually in some ways were actually services, types of ways to tap into information, types of way to tap into the other main archive areas of specialities of various information of various types, extreme references to incredible educational options, private educational options, items that were on a discount, discounted options to get a hold of fantastic educational options at the highest end from people who had achieved much, who were among the greatest teachers of our modern time, that would be involved in selling their course. All of this is in the state of limbo loss. 18 mobile RV vehicles lost at the moment. Well, they're not lost. SAR's recorded them. There's 7 satellites that I've discovered that were over the areas with overlapping recording. One particular satellite was locked into a mode involving it was grabbing it at 60 frames a second. 60 frames a second. Right down to the resolution of a blade of grass. It froze in place and it started grabbing high resolution captures. All of this data is readily available to utilize to catch various people who were criminals. We also have the other areas of participation. We have the blacklisting factor, the Julie Sue factor. We have the Shirley Weber factor. We have the current AG of California factor. We have the previous other different major players that were challenged, that they had to assist in stopping attacks upon candidates. That effectively leads to Kamala Harris. So as Kamala Harris's hidden baggage is something that some people haven't considered yet, the reality of what it is, and as this campaign moves forward, as this election seems to move forward, we're closer and closer to the shutdown, to the permanent disqualification of Kamala Harris for her participation of those things that are in the closet. She's going to be permanently removed from the California ballot. You see, the Constitution's quite specific, the articles are quite specific. Attacks upon a candidate from another candidate are considered acts of war. Well, certain ones are. Blacklisting a candidate, aiding and abetting parties and getting away. So when you go to Kamala, when you go to Harris's offices and you say, look, I'm here, this is the deal, these police officers have done this crime against a candidate. They are politically motivated or whatever their disease is. You know, there's a lot more to be revealed into this, but you just take it at the base level, because national security is violated. The process of elections are violated. And these items are investigated by Arkansas, who comes to the determination that, yes, these people are pounding electronic information that's erroneous. There's no truth to it. We've investigated. It's a complete set of lies, which means not only was there an improper investigation done to begin with, when it was brought to their attention, they repeatedly refused to do a proper investigation. And here's pretty much why. Because you get engaged with these people, you send them information, you call them on the phone, you go, you haven't communicated, let's go over this information. Why is this? So you go over the information, and it starts out with well, we can't talk about certain things. I says, well, you don't necessarily have to talk. You can listen. You don't have to reveal information, but you can listen. And by the way, you're required by law to receive information. They're required to listen to a candidate. It's the law. It's federal law. They have to do that. So a lot of people don't understand how that works. So you go, look, this is the electronic records, and you can pull the electronic records. You can see the electronic records, and you can see that the electronic records are wrong. They don't match. One state doesn't match another state. And an investigation was done in this other state. So you can see that there's receipts for cash paid item right here for registration. So this little portion on this ticket that says that taxes have not been paid is a lie. The taxes have been paid. And the payment for this receipt, for this license plate, and for this tag, and for this, here is a list of paid receipt items. Here's a list of insurance on file, everything. But this person is going to continuously break the law. They're going to continuously generate these items. So now you have definitive evidence that this needs to be pulled off the books. And their point is, this is interesting. We're not sure if we can do it that way, but yeah, I guess we might be able to get that removed from the books. So obviously, because it wasn't investigated right. First, before things go before a judge, the prosecutorial factors are supposed to screen the material. You're not supposed to bother a judge before proper prosecutorial investigation has been done. That's a mandate item. So you also have a new discovery, so that's great, because what we have is new discovery. What we have here is we've discovered this series of crimes that have been committed by these individuals, and we're demanding prosecution. They have conducted themselves and committed sabotage in the process of elections against a candidate. Here's all the charges. Here's the numbers. Here's the sequences. This is what this evidence indicates, and we're demanding full prosecuting. But you see, Harris's office is very, oh, we don't want to do that. Well, we want to talk to other people. Oh, well, we don't want to do that. So, look, you see the evidence. This is not the first rodeo here. This is not the first communication. You people have been notified that you're attacking candidates, that you've committed hellacious crimes, yet you refuse. You refuse to protect the process of elections. That's a crime. And you are refusing to protect a candidate. That's a crime. You have definitive information in front of you, and you're refusing to act upon it. That's a crime. You are aiding and abetting parties to stay at large that are a threat to a candidate. That's a crime. You are aiding and abetting parties that have been involved in activity that have attacked an archiver, because the candidate is also an archiver, and there's an entirely series of separate laws. Here you go, here they are, that describe this situation in mandatory prosecution. Those are a list of crimes. Mandatory prosecution. These items, because of these attacks, have caused financial discomfort, an additional blacklisting factor. These are additional lists of absolute crimes that are inescapable. So we have this 100% mathematical identification of the law, and as these crimes move forward, connected to Harris. The collective continuation, beyond the shadow of a doubt, brings the clear understanding that she has participated in committing acts of war against a candidate. and therefore she is disqualified from running as a presidential candidate. It is specifically noted. She is to be removed immediately from all ballots nationwide. She is to be immediately prosecuted for all of these items that she is connected into participating in. There's a series of specific policies that were written and developed by her. They're in violation of the Constitution of the United States. She is to be immediately prosecuted for those. The reality is, I revealed to the public that she can't be a candidate. She will not be on the California ballot. I will be on the California ballot. She will not be on the California ballot. Let's look at this slowly. 18 mobile broadcast vehicles, RVs, that are also archives, that are also powerful assistive tooling devices attacked. These parties attacked the business. They ordered things shut down. They refused to compensate. Julie Sue blacklisted people. We have our intelligence at this point indicates that various witness statement fragments add up to an understanding that Shirley Weber and her office cooperated with Julie Sue, and that they turned over lists that Julie Sue used in programming intentional blacklisting of California citizens. That's an act of treason. That's punishable by death. The law is clear on items that move forward. If any damage occurs, parties' liability situation continues to extend. So if their actions lead to a situation, regardless of how you decide to shape it, label it, if their negligence leads to the destruction or losses of any type, any deficiency in security, they are also responsible. So if this deals with the loss of information pertaining to national security, they're also responsible. There are a series of criminal laws that deal with parties if we jump around and get into the complexities of archive. Attacking archives, these are archival violations. There is a long series of archival violations that are connected to Kamala Harris, to Julie Sue, to Shirley Weber, to the current AG of California. There's even dereliction of duty that is connected to the White House. The obligation of the White House to be in dereliction of duty concerning national security, well, there's not supposed to be an excuse for that to occur. Those are another series of very serious matters to be looked at. But there are so many crimes that these people have involved themselves in. And there's so much work that has to be done. And the blatant understanding that we have the most simplistic area. Businesses are ordered shut down, stay-at-home orders, and parties are what? They're listed at the Secretary of State's office as parties who produce turned in petitions to be placed on the ballot. They are proven election gig participants. The stay-at-home orders included shutting down all mass congregation areas, which basically meant it was impossible to do signature gathering techniques. These fall under the compensation. Congress ordered compensation. Congress is pretty clear, by the way. The Senate was pretty clear that they ordered compensation to be paid to people, and that this was not administrated properly. That was brought to Julie Sue's attention before the United States Senate already. So, aside from the fact that this has been brought to other people's attention, we have actual processing of clear processing that proves that mass incompetence, at the very least, has occurred involving, well, the occurrence of $31 billion in fraud connected to Julie Sue, and the fact that it's been revealed that she pretty much got caught lying to the Senate involving her activity on communications and her calendaring list and who she talked to. And this proves basically, eventually, that she admitted certain things. She blacklisted people. She blacklisted communications. She violated continuity of elections. She refused communications from candidates who needed to be paid, who were, well, basically in a situation where Congress had ordered that their income be supplemented. But this didn't occur. These parties ended up in a series of blacklisting, and they froze an entire convoy in fleet. This entire convoy got frozen, and now this entire convoy is lost. Because it's archives, because there's national security information, because it pertains to process of election, because it pertains to all these other things, advanced development, items of crucial forward movement for services, legal services to help rewrite American citizens. This is a great crime against humanity. Again, 18 mobile broadcast RV vehicles. Just 12 of those on the Los Angeles freeway system going on and off the cloverleafs in less than a 24-hour period would see the exposure of more than 1 million people would see those large vehicles with a name on the side. My name. Michael Crosby for POTUS 2024. They also would have seen it back during the gubernatorial recall election. The special recall election comes into play as basically we're not just talking about a year of this election sequence not having those vehicles on the road, being seen, people being directed to go to the over 200 websites of which the domains were proof of. And all this stuff is documented, huge amounts of documents, packets of these documents sent to various people. They know about this. They know about this. So we have a situation that involves blacklisting, and specific instances involving notification and legal request for action this day and other actions by Shirley Weber, the California Secretary of State, who is responsible for protecting the process of elections. The actual definitions have an extended definition. We have mass dereliction of duty by Shirley Weber. We have her refusing to access, refusing to make a 5-minute call departmentally to check, another area of the building for records concerning the candidate, proof that they were a gig worker, and a 5-minute phone call to Julie Sue, the EDD, to investigate the simplicity that a candidate was being blacklisted and their income was under attack. Attack against a candidate, a very serious violation, specifically mentioned in the Constitution and Articles. An oath to protect the Constitution of the United States requires mandatory consciousness of the Secretary of State of California to investigate such a complaint. The clear mentioning of other respective understanding that during insurrection that candidates need only verbally proclaim is also of key point. It is what is written. These multiple continuous overlapping items repeatedly show the repeated violation of oath, the repeated violation of the Constitution, the repeated negligence, the repeated dereliction of duty, respective to the most simplistic understanding. How many candidates did you have running for governor? So even though you had a two-part election, she already is busted 9 ways from Tuesday. As the joke would go, there's no way out. She's screwed. She's screwed. She, by definition of the Constitution, has committed acts of treason. Treason. The multiple overlapping laws that she has violated are crimes, not only crimes against humanity, but there was at least 3 areas, there's actually more, there's at least 3 solid areas that overlap that state mandatory death penalty for Shirley Weber. It's mandatory. We have archival violations, large scale. So the understanding here at this moment, as we're moving into the top end of the hour, is that beyond the shadow of a doubt, the most basic information verifiable in minutes, just minutes, via the telephone, by a computer, verifies that both Julie Sue and both Shirley Weber are clearly in deep violations. You cannot trust Shirley Weber's office to manage anything that has to do with the process of elections because she intentionally discriminated against a candidate. Repeated action, at the very least, of dereliction of duty. Oh, she refused to make those 2 phone calls just to verify. To give the candidate credit to say, yeah, well, look, my income's 100% shut down. All avenues of nonprofit activity, all avenues of business and income are ordered shut down by the government. All of them. There are no other options. They've all been ordered shut down. That is attack upon a candidate's income. You're not allowed to do that. It's an act of war. But in itself, if we're understanding that Congress did immediately act and say, well, here there has to be money available. But then parties, when it's directly brought to their attention, Shirley Weber, I want to be on the ballot because I'm running for governor. Here, I need you to front the fees because the state owes me money and is failing to pay me. This repeated actions of them being notified repeatedly and repeatedly, blacklisting a candidate intentionally. That's interference with the process of elections. I already went over part of the small list, and all those list items extend by federal definition of the massive violations that have occurred by these parties. And the basic understanding that the candidate, because of insurrection, needs only verbally proclaim. Verbal communication is all that's actually technically necessary, but they've received repeated information in writing and still refused. As apparently they seem to have been identified as endorsers and connected to Kamala Harris' campaign, they have disqualified Kamala Harris yet again another time as well. yet again one more time as well. They think that they can get together and get together as buddies and destroy entire archive fleets, destroy entire fleets of other candidates, of other campaigns, so that they can rig elections repeatedly. The gubernatorial election proven. And now we're in the middle of this election, and we have to put an immediate stop to this situation. These parties must immediately be arrested and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law immediately. I, as the candidate, verbally proclaim and verbally state this and convey it to congressmen, senators, members of the public, voters, because you're now hearing my voice. You have verbally heard. You have heard a verbal proclamation, a verbal request, a series of logics that are definitive. Kamala Harris will be removed from the California ballot, and my name will be placed on the California ballot. I've also set additional paperwork in motion. Some of it can be triggered very easily, as simple as me passing one document that releases rights to access the stored area of documents that I have prepared. One document releases sets of documents to who I choose, whether it's Mitt Romney, whether it's Adam Schiff, whether it is whoever. And I have every right to declare panel, for which I've done. I've declared the right of panel. I've declared written notice of operations in the state of California. I have not had cooperations. There are additional laws concerning parties who fail to cooperate with a candidate panel, with an insurrection candidate panel. Let's not go there. Yes, it leads to the death penalty. But we have so much overlapping at this point. It's going to be my name on the California ballot. I'm seizing all of the California delegates just in case, because of unfair practices. They cannot be counted or certified until all of my matters are completely resolved, because it also states that all these matters, there's other areas, all these matters involving the election fraud, the compensation, the adjustments, that means massive advertising for me to be able to communicate with the voters. That means the restoration of an entire fleet, an entire convoy of mobile broadcast RV vehicles, and a massive archive has to be done. So the call for arrest is quite clear. My name is Michael Crosby. I'm a candidate for the presidency of the United States. Thank you very much.